Hello, my name is Sebastian,
And my name is David.
and this is the Magic the Gathering Newbies to Masters podcast.
Just gonna shout out our sponsors, the esports club here at PCC, ran by Andrew Nunn, the trio faculty. They are located here on PCC campus and in the academic building. And a special thanks to Chaos Games and More, located in Pueblo at 4065 Club Manor Drive.
And we record every Wednesday and post either that same Thursday or Friday. That is our schedule. That will probably stay our schedule for a little while. And I guess we'll get right back into our first episode. So today we are going to talk about how to play Magic the Gathering. And this will go from your upkeep all the way to your end step. And so to get there, we have to play lands. So we'll talk about lands and mana costs. So each land taps for a color or no colorless, which is called
Colorless.
Yeah, he's got it. And so we have an island which taps for a blue, a forest will tap for a green, a mountain will tap for a red, a plains for a white, and a swamp for a black. And then you have your colorless mana, which we'll talk about like mana rocks, which is like your soul ring, which you tap it for 2 colorless. And coincidentally, you can only play 1 land per turn unless a card states otherwise. So you'll have cards in Magic that'll be like, you can now play 2 lands per turn, and so forth and so on. I've seen people play like up to 6 lands a turn, and they've gotten that too.
Yeah, and it sucks, especially when the first thing they do is cast all their lands on multiple turns, and on top of that, then start casting their soul rings and their arcane signets and all that.
Oh, yeah. It is statistically proven that the person who move 1 plays a soul ring, which it only casts 1, so you tap a land for soul ring. Statistically, they're going to be the big threat at the table for the entire game. They'll be the ones targeted first.
Yeah, and because of all their mana ramp and all their things that they could do, like sneaky little foxes they are.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Coincidentally, we all have soul rings ourselves, so we're kind of hypocrites on that part.
Yeah. Yes, we are. It sucks, but we do it too. And honestly, you just got to do what you got to do to defeat everyone else. Just win the game. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
And so to play spells, which are every card in the game is a spell unless it's a land. Basically, in the top right corner, you'll have CMC, the collective mana cost, which is you'll have a number, which is the amount of colorless you need to cast the spell, and a color, which is the amount of what type of color you will need. Some will have white, or green. Others will have 2 and a white. That just means you need to spend 2 colorless and a white.
And when he says colorless, he doesn't really mean colorless. You could play with any color.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what color it is, just you need 2 of any mana.
Yeah. Yep. When it has that little circle at the top right and it has a number, that means you can tap any mana to pay for that. And yeah, that's the land base.
Okay, now moving on to untap step. So seeing as you played your lands and your creatures and whatnot, during your untap step, you untap your lands and untap your creatures and your artifacts, because artifacts do have tap abilities in which you have to untap to use them again, unless another artifact states otherwise, because there are artifacts that say artifacts don't have to tap or untap. And same thing goes for creatures. If your creatures have vigilance, you didn't have to untap, you just have to attack.
Yeah.
And for regular creatures, that doesn't count. You have to tap to attack, and you can't block during that. So the ones you do tap, you untap during your untap step, and your lands could be untapped as well to cast other spells. And after your drawing step, after untap step, there's an upkeep trigger. Triggers such as Venser's Journal. This card reads, on your upkeep, you gain 1 life for every card in your hand.
So in Commander, everyone starts the game at 40 life. And so the way to get ahead is either to have a way to draw more cards to them or a way to gain more life. And those are like the big two that people focus on.
Yes, and Commander is one of the game modes you could play with Magic the Gathering. There
Mm-hmm.
are subcategories of games, even house-made games, which are really fun because I played one last weekend, or no, 2 weekends ago, and it was a blast.
Oh, yeah.
And after your upkeep phase comes your draw phase. You draw one card per turn, unless a card states that you could draw an extra card or even
Mm-hmm.
more.
Yeah.
And after your draw phase comes your main phase. For your main phase, you could use your lands and your artifacts that tap for mana to cast spells. Spells such as creatures, sorceries, and enchantments. And a sorcery is a spell you can cast only during your turn. And
Mm.
enchantments are either an aura or you can enchant a player. One notably good enchantment for a player is Curse of Unbinding. I
Yeah, no.
gave PTSD to my buddy Sebastian over here across the table.
Yeah, he ruined my entire game by milling me. And milling is putting the cards from the top of your library straight into your graveyard.
Yeah, at least it's not that Eldrazi that tells you to mail. Then those cards go to exile
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
of graveyard.
When I think it's I can't remember. It's like a 10 cost Eldrazi.
Yes,
But on attack, it's like a 10/10. When he swings, you have to exile the top 20 cards.
of your library.
And yeah, and it's very, very difficult to get cards out of exile. Very rarely do people have cards that'll say return this from exile. The one I run is Karn the Destroyer, or it's either the Destroyer or the Great Creator. It states it's a planeswalker, which aren't creatures, and you can -2 for their. It's basically their health. You can take 2 of their health away, and you can grab a card out of exile and put it into your hand. It's literally what has saved me so many times.
Yeah, and after your main phase, after casting all your spells, you could enter your combat phase, which means you could pick a player to attack. Yippee!
Not fun.
You could do some damage, or you could get some damage up to you, because there are some cases where it just Uno reverses on you.
Yeah, they'll basically play a card when you go to combat and you try to attack them. They'll be like, nope, you take that much damage instead.
Yep. So you picked a player to attack, and what do? Well, there's 2 instances. One, the defending player blocks, and some of your creatures might die or won't die. And if he doesn't block, all the damage goes through.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we talk about when we say blockers? Wall blockers introduce power and toughness. So, for example, if you had a power 3 creature with a toughness 4, he could do 3 damage,
Mm-hmm.
but he could take 4 and he will die. So if he takes a hit from a 4/5 creature, he's gone. He's a goner.
Yeah, that dude is dead.
Yeah, he's off to the gulag with that one, huh?
Hey, oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you could either have people block you, or if you have flyers, they can't block unless they have flying or
Mhm.
reach.
Yep, because it'll go right over your head, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, right over your head. So now, when a card is killed, it could either go to your uh, graveyard or exiled if the card states so. Now, being in the graveyard, if you are a Golgari deck, you could
Okay.
pull out creatures from your creatures and other what's it called? Other cards.
Yeah.
Just other cards in general.
Yeah,
Uh,
exile is a lot more difficult than graveyard. There's a plethora of cards that'll get stuff out of your graveyard very easily by like either sacking a creature or taking life. Mainly black is the way you want to go if you want to have a graveyard deck. Black will do it for you. It's mainly zombies. It's actually where you get that curse of unbinding.
Yeah, I'm one of the zombie deck players. It's actually my first pre-con that I've ever bought, and to be honest, it's actually really fun to play because I've spiced it up a little with my little additions.
Oh yeah. By
Yeah,
by spice he means I played him against his own deck today and he lost.
yeah, that's funny.
Oh yeah.
Now, while you're in your combat phase, if you choose not to attack, you can simply pass it to your second main phase.
So the second main phase is a second place where you can cast more sorceries. You can cast more cards. You can tap your mana. You can do all of that stuff on your second main. It's basically the exact same thing as your first main phase, except you can't attack a second time. And now, after your second main phase, you go to your end step. This is the beginning to the end of your turn. Now, you'll have a lot of cards that state something happens on your end step. Some you can pick to happen, others, they just outright happen.
Yeah, and a good example is both of our favorite commanders. My commander is Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver. So, what this states is at the beginning of my end step, you may sacrifice a zombie, and if you do, you draw a card.
Yeah, so that's another one of those instances where it gives you a little extra card draw than your opponents, which will easily make you an enemy. Is that card draw? That'll really help. And then my commander that I really enjoy using. Sadly, I spent like $600 on this deck. You really don't need to.
I
You
spent
only
50. I
yeah
only spent $50 on mine. So,
yeah. You only really need like $50 to start this game. But this deck is built around artifacts, and my commander is Urza, Chief Artificer. You can tap it for a blue, a white, and a black, and 3 colorless or 3 of any mana. He has on your end step, it reads at the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 colorless construct creature token with +1/+1 for every artifact. And tokens are basically cards created by cards. You're not playing them, but they're created. Say like, yeah, I'll play this card, and when it enters the battlefield, I create this card. And that's basically what a token is.
yeah, and with the tokens, zombies take a lot of tokens. They'll just bring more and more zombies. Is a zombie dead? Nope, another one comes back. And I also wanted to mention there are Magic the Gathering starter kits that you can get for as little as $20, where you could play a game of Magic. And with a 60 card size standard deck, the game we're mentioning is called Commander. That's more of a 100 cards with
Yeah.
a deck. And there's, like I said, there is a lot of game modes that you can play, such as Commander or even Standard, Brawl.
Yeah, there's so many.
There's so many. Yeah, there's so many. You don't need 100 cards. You just need a starter kit.
Yep.
And it'll explain the rules. You build your tiny little deck, and you could have fun with your sister, with your brother, with your mom, with your dad.
It's pretty easy.
It's pretty rare to play with your mom and dad because they're kind of old. But yeah, you can have a fun time with these starter kits.
Oh yeah. The main difference between standard and commander, those are your main two that people tend to play, especially in like tournament settings. Standard will basically mean 60 cards, you don't have a commander, and you can have duplicates of the same card in the deck of up to 4. So you can have 4 of the same card, which makes it a little bit more of a faster game. It'll increase your odds of pulling the right card. And in Commander, it is 100 cards, 99 of which is in your library, and 1 of which is your commander, which it's the main card, and that one commander can affect the rest of the 99 cards in your library. Even your graveyard too.
Yeah, there's a lot of game modes, and my favorite to play is Commander. So we like to play that a lot.
Oh yeah, Commander is definitely a bit more fun than Standard, at least to me.
Yeah, to me too. And if you were like me and didn't really have anybody to play with, there's also Magic the Gathering Arena.
Oh yeah.
That will show you how to play pretty much and
Hmm.
be very helpful. It's a
It's a
lot
good
more.
start.
It's a
Yeah.
good start. It's a good
And
start.
if you, let's say you play Magic the Gathering Arena, which is on your phone or computer, laptop, anything like that. If you buy a like little booster pack, it's like one of those things with like 10 cards, all random. They'll give you a little card on the back of those boosters that has a code in it. You,
Yeah, this is real life, not in the
yeah,
game.
yeah.
We're talking about real life. You can buy
In
these
real
booster
life,
packs.
yeah, you can buy these with real money, and they'll give you a code, and you'll not only have those cards in real life, physical copies, but you can input that code into the arena, and you'll get those cards in there as well.
Yes, and if you are a fan of Magic the Gathering Arena, just like me, and has a deck you want to use in real life, well, guess what? You could find the names of the cards and buy them yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of your Magic the Gathering stores will allow you to buy singles and build your deck from there.
Oh yeah, it's pretty easy. Here at Chaos as well. If you show up on Mondays from 6 to I think they stay open till like 12. The store part doesn't stay open, but you can play games up till that late. It's about you can choose to pay the entrance fee for the tables. It's $5, but you get 1 to 2 little hole punches on a punch card, and each of those punches is worth $2. I have 16 punches saved up, which means I have $32 of in-store credit. I can turn that card in, and I can grab pretty much any cards I want that they have in this little binder, and they can get pretty expensive too. So it's a really easy way.
Yeah, I wanted to build a vampire deck, and I went to go in to see if I could find it, and sure enough, I found it. It was Alj Elsa. No, not Elsa. That's a whole different category. But her name started with an E. The Dusk Rose. I know her name
Oh
starts
yeah.
around the Dusk Rose. It's a vampire, and I tried making a commander deck out of her. When I went in to go buy it, it was almost up to $30. So this in-store credit could really help you out when you're trying to build a commander deck.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It'll and you can even turn this store credit in and then pay the excess. It's pretty cool what they do there.
Yeah,
Um,
they're very friendly. If you're in town or even hell traveling, and happen to be in our little hometown called Pueblo, Colorado, you can stop by, and they are the most friendly people you've ever met.
yeah.
Some of them bitter than others, but they're pretty friendly.
Oh yeah. The only times they can ever like get like playfully angry is if you beat them. They'll be like, "Oh man, oh shucks," because there are a bunch of old people
Yeah,
there.
yeah. If you probably beat them, you'll probably hear every time you walk in the store, "Oh, it's you."
Yes,
Yeah,
that happens.
that'll happen, and yeah, find out your local store. Maybe they host Magic Commander nights.
Oh yeah.
Even you don't have to be located in Pueblo because it's not
They're everywhere.
they're everywhere. It's not just here, guys. You could
Oh
play
yeah.
this game anywhere, and you could do your thing,
Hmm.
beat somebody, give somebody PTSD with Curse of Unbinding.
Yeah,
Eh,
that hurt. That really hurt me. Like as a friend and as a person who
oh
plays
wow, as a
Magic,
friend.
it
Yeah.
hurt me.
Yeah, this can make and break relationships, I guess.
Oh yeah. So going
Politics.
back to it, on those phases, you have priority. Priority is the order in which players get to cast spells or activate abilities of the cards they are in control in. When it is your turn, you start each phase with priority. So your combat phase, your end step, your, upkeep, all of those, you get priority first. Now, if you don't activate any abilities or play cards in those phases, another player has a chance to take priority and do the exact same thing, where they'll play cards, they'll do all sorts of stuff. There's like lands that you can play that say like tap, sacrifice, and go search for a different land or two different
Evolving
lands.
Wilds.
Yeah, that's the big one. And you can, and the best way to do that is to like on your end step, I'll crack my evolving wilds and go search for
Yeah,
two lands.
you could do a lot of every phase can be a response.
Yes. Yep. And because it's on your upkeep, you untap all your lands. some lands will say they enter the battlefield tapped, and sometimes you want to play those lands like Evolving Wilds on another person's end step. So that way, when it gets back to your turn, you can untap those lands you just got, and you can play more cards. And I guess we'll talk about instances and flash, which is what happens when someone takes priority on top of you, when they basically take over after you don't play anything. Basically, instances are cards that you can play at any time in response to another person doing nothing or doing something. What I mean by doing nothing is going into a different phase. So if someone enters their combat phase, you can be like, in response to you entering combat, I'll tap 2 lands and kill your creature before it can attack anyone.
Yeah, and you guys gotta be very very careful because when you attack, you are open to responses.
Oh,
So
yeah.
instances such as, let's say you were attacking with a 3/3 creature, and they have an instance saying, um, you tap your mana, play the spell, and it says give creature -3/-3. That will kill your creature instantly, and you won't even attack. Like
Oh, yeah.
nothing will go through. It will just fizzle out of the universe. That's all it's gonna do.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
it goes to your graveyard. It's not exiled. That's what I mean. But yeah,
And then another thing to say is a little keyword called indestructible. It will stop you from your creatures from getting killed. So if it says destroy this creature, it's indestructible. It can't be destroyed. But if it gives it -3/-3, that means it's dealing 3 damage to its toughness. That gets around indestructible because you can just get rid of its health without attacking it. The same with exile. If you exile something with indestructible, it's not destroying it, it's just removing it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cards that can exile, and white is actually pretty known for that. You'd think it'd be something like black, but no, it's white.
Yeah, I have a card called Despark. It's an instant, so you can play it at any time someone plays a card or moves into a different step. It says exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater.
Yeah, and when he did that, we were playing today, and he did that exact thing and killed my commander.
Yeah.
And the thing about commander, guys, is every time your commander dies, your cost for playing your commander rises by 2.
Taxes.
Yeah, taxes, something we're not really fond in America. I don't know if I should be saying that on here, but I pay my taxes. Don't worry,
I definitely
IRS.
do. I
IRS.
totally pay my taxes.
Yeah, I pay my taxes. Don't worry. But yeah, I just don't play Smothering Tithe taxes or Ristic Study taxes.
Oh, yeah, and both of those are more card draw.
Yeah.
So Ristic Study is like when you play a spell, if you don't pay 1, another person can draw a card.
Yeah.
And you already know how bad card draw is. It sucks.
Yeah, and Smothering Tithe, if a player doesn't pay 2, I believe, 2 or 1 mana for drawing a card. This one is drawing a card, not even playing a cast. Every time you draw a card, when you pay, nothing really happens. But if you don't pay, the controller of that enchantment will create a treasure token, and this treasure token could be used for any color of mana, which is could be very helpful for you, but very deadly for you at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And that treasure token is actually an artifact, which will actually get us into our next segment. What are artifacts? And so basically, artifacts are it's pretty anything that's labeled artifacts, but most artifacts like Soul Ring, they take only colorless mana or whatever. So it's basically just a circle with like a 1 or a 2 in it. You don't have to play any color. You can just tap any land, anything to play these cards. And sometimes they can be mana, they can be creatures, and it can help out a lot.
Yeah. One of the artifacts that I own have Convoke. Convoke is where you could use your creatures to help cast that spell, and you tap whatever you tap your creature for, it taps for the mana of its color identity. So if you have a black a black creature and you tap it, it counts for a swamp. And if you have a green creature, it counts for forest and etc.
Convoke sucks.
Yeah,
I hate having
Convoke
it used against me.
Convoke. I like it in Magic the Gathering because I have a card saying world something Colossus,
Oh,
and it's a white green, and when you tap when you pay for it, you could put an X cost. Now the X cost, this is a cost that does have no limit. It could be 0 or it could be even 20. When you do this, some cards will say you gain X life, which is the amount of mana you paid.
yeah.
But with this one, it gains that many. It enters with a base power and toughness of that set X amount. So if I were to pay 5, it'd be a 5/5. If I were to pay 10, 10, 10, and so on.
Oh yeah. Now, and base power and toughness is basically when it enters the battlefield, it has a set number of like a 5/4 or a 3/2 or a 1/1. That's base power. But you can also add counters on it like +1/+1. And there are a lot of cards in decks that state when it enters the battlefield, if it has no +1/+1 counters, give it one. Or if you deal damage to an enemy, put a +1/+1 counter on the thing that dealt damage that turn.
If say if your creature destroyed a creature, your creature gets a +1/+1. Those cards
Yeah.
exist, and the worst one that possibly exists is the one that I own. Is every time the creature hits you, whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, that player has to sacrifice a creature, and I
Yeah.
believe it's a dragon. It's a white, no, not white, a black blue dragon, and it's very bad. It can
Oh
be
yeah,
very
it
bad.
sucks. I have another one of those dragons, part of my artifact deck. It's the same Urza that I mainly use. It's called Steel Hellkite. If it has flying, I think it's like a flying 4/4 or a 5/5, but you can pay X into it if it hits a player. If it deals combat damage, you can pay X, and it basically states destroy all permanents, and permanents are all cards with a mana cost. Destroy all permanents with X mana cost, where X is the number of mana you pay. So let's say I pay 2 mana. That means anything on your board that is exactly 2 mana to pay collectively, it will be destroyed.
So I was mistaken. The card that I own is called Ruthless Deathfang, and Ruthless Deathfang states whenever I sacrifice a creature, target opponent sacrifices a creature.
Oh.
So with that said, with my commander will help. Whenever you sacrifice a zombie, you draw a card. So with this card is a good combo to kind of answer the creatures your opponents has. So if you sacrifice a zombie, boom, card draw. But if you also have this, whenever you sacrifice, the other player also has to sacrifice. So one up for you and a one down for him. He loses a card. He loses a creature, and you gain a card.
Oh yeah. Another advantage other than card draw in life is creatures. If you have more creatures on your board than the enemy opponents, you're automatically you're going to become the target because you're better than everyone right now.
Yeah, when you have more creatures, everybody assumes you're the target.
Oh yeah.
Or if you're like my buddy here, Sebastian, he gets targeted just because.
Yeah, I mean, just the other night I played Urza, and I have a combo that basically shuts down the entire board. And David over here, he was like, "Why don't you play that deck anymore? Why are you playing such an easy deck?" And I was like, "You know what? Fine, I'll switch decks." And I did.
You know what I did? I think I ended up scooping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
ended up
He
leaving.
quit. He quit like a baby. Aw.
Hey, I was hungry that day.
Okay.
I made you quit at the same time. That way we could go eat.
Yeah, but I still won that game.
Yeah, I know.
But I basically played that same Karn I was talking about. His flavor text, though, is activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control cannot be activated. So, like your Soul Ring, which is an artifact that taps for 2 colorless,
Gone.
can no longer tap. It's just gone. And then I played the combo piece to that, which is Mycosynth Lattice. It's like a $20 card. It states everything on the battlefield permanents or otherwise, are artifacts. Spells that aren't on your hand or that are in your hand are in the library and are in the graveyard are now colorless.
Yeah, in another word, perpetually. That's pretty much what it's saying. Perpetually, everything that you own in your deck and in your graveyard and in your hand is now an artifact.
Yes. And you can now, but you can tap mana as if it were any color. But in doing so, in playing both of those cards one after the other, opponents can no longer tap their lands for mana because it is now an artifact and you can no longer tap artifacts. Another artifact that's actually really good, there's two of them. Vidalcan Ori. This will actually help you with what's called flash speed. It reads, you may cast spells as if they had flash speed. This means you can play any type of card on anyone's turn. You can tap your lands, play a card. You can play sorceries on other people's turns. You can basically screw people over with the little cards, the tiny ones.
Yeah.
And what's it called? Another good, really good artifact is Cloud Key. Or not Cloud Key, it's what is it? I cannot remember. But it basically states that on every person's untap step, you untap as well.
Unwinding Clock.
Yes.
That's it. That's the one I almost stole from you.
Oh my god, yeah, you almost took it.
Yeah.
Thief.
We were playing Magic the Gathering one time here at PCC, and he had used it, and then I took it from him using a spell. Like, I was able to...
It was Atali, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was... I think so.
And it states on combat, everyone flips over the top card, and if it's non-land permanent, you can cast that on your side without paying its mana cost. So it's pretty much free.
Yeah.
And he stole like 3 people's cards, and it sucked.
Yeah, and the funny part is I stole the Atali. I shapeshift. One of my creatures were able to shapeshift out of him. So
oh, yeah.
I pretty much... None of the cards I played that day were pretty much mine. They were all
evil.
Yeah. So Unwinding Clock is a good one to have if you're an artifact deck.
Oh yeah, Unwinding Clock states on each player's untap step, you untap with them. So if you play Mycos and Lattice, make all your lands artifacts, and play the clock, that means on their untap step, you can untap your land. And if you have the Vidalcan Ori, you can now play anything you want at the speed you want at any time. And then on the next player's turn, you just untap and you can do the same thing over again.
Yeah. A lot of instances where that has happened, and it's almost fishy every time he gets Unwinding Clock because he always has it. But yeah, there's not really any cheating in Magic. You can't really get away with that because it's so obvious. Like, oh, I'm gonna look for a card. I'm gonna pick up my library and start looking. It's like, yeah. People will notice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it today. We talked about the land, the colorless, what colorless is. We talked about all the phases you can go through, what people can do, and a bunch of other fun stuff. But I think that'll be it for today, folks.
And we will see you on our next episode when we upload on Thursday or the following Friday.
Yeah.
We record every Wednesday, and we try to get it out to you as quickly as we can.
Oh, yeah. So later.